Welcome back to the Ancient Game Ninjas channel here, and we're going to actually review the 7th Saga. I kind of posted the walkthrough some time ago, but wanted to take a few minutes just to talk about the game itself. 7th Saga is a game that I actually had on NES. It's one of the few Super NES. It's one of the few Super NES games that I had, and I'm not even sure where I got it. I think my folks got it at a rummage sale or something, and it just turned out to be an RPG. If it hadn't been for that, I would have never even found it. One of the Probably my favorite part about it is the characters. The characters are very unique in their own way, and you pick one and then you play as it, and you can get one additional party member, if you will. Um, they kind of have the archetypes like the mage, black mage, white mage, tanky, but like the robot alien. They're kind of somewhere in the middle. The dwarf and the even that soldier or the knight, he's kind of not a traditional tank, I would say. Well, one of the things that's real interesting about this game is every time you play it, whoever you play as is you're going to run into the other characters somewhere, and sometimes they'll join you, sometimes they won't. So there's a certain amount of the game that kind of changes from game to game. And the person that you want to join your team may not join you, or he might. It just depends. So it's kind of got some variability. The Seventh Saga is just incredibly famous for being super hard. And when I was preparing to play this game again, I kind of did a little reading. It sounds like what they did is they basically scaled the other heroes that at some point in the game you may or may not fight to your level. So even if you grind and grind and grind, they just get harder and harder and harder anyways. And as you see here, like Wilmy the Alien and Ulvon, they just massacred me. Even while you're buffing up, like here you're using one of the runes to increase your defense power, and he's doing the same thing. So it's almost not even mood. It's in your detriment. Here I'm increasing my attack power with the moon rune, and hits me once. I'm gonna defend, cast magic, kills me. I mean, that is a hard fight. So the Seventh Saga is a very difficult game. That's probably the greatest con. And in the case of Ulvon, I simply couldn't beat him, and I didn't want him on my team. So if you can't beat him, you join him. What do you do? But even with that said, it's the difficulty's not just the other characters. Like mimics, the first time you get into there, that's going to be really challenging. The you know I remember the first time I opened up a chest and it was a mimic, basically one-shotted me. Some mobs cast vacuum like these guys, and there's a single target vacuum spell, and there's a multi-target vacuum spell, and if it lands, you just die. So like here's an example where it just lands, and it didn't get both my guys fortunately, but there's been a lot of times where it does hit both your guys and then you're just dead. It's got some traditional mobs like the metal slime type mob where it's kind of a harder mob. I think I was much higher level at this point, but high experience for a harder mob that if you can't destroy, a lot of times they run that type of thing. Just in general, I kind of enjoyed the sprites of this game. All the monster sprites, the basic monster, boss monster. One of the things that was kind of neat is in that era, the sprites move. That's not something you've seen a lot of at that kind of time. One of the weird things about the Seven Saga is I felt like it's so zoomed in, like the resolution's wrong. I don't even know how to explain it. For the time, at this time in Super Nintendo age, something like this, even though today it looks really kind of grody, was just fantastic graphics. But even when you're on the overland map, you're running around and it feels like you're super zoomed in. So you don't see a lot of the landscape because you don't have enough real estate because you're too zoomed in. That's one of the things I always thought was kind of odd about the Seven Saga, but you get used to it, and I think they programmed the game kind of with that, so I don't feel like they made the maps overly large. They kind of knew that you were zoomed in at a different ratio than you were in other games like Dragon Warrior or Final Fantasy. This, one of the things that one of the themes I always really enjoyed in Seven Saga was there's all this ancient robots that are, kind of strewn around, and there's not very many of them, and there's kind of a story and some foreshadowing involved with it. And I kind of just like that there, all the people knew that there was robots, but the robots for the most part weren't bothering anybody. In fact, a lot of times they defended the towns and stuff like that. But nobody really knew where they were from or why, and the technology of the current era wasn't able to produce something like that. Another challenge in 7th Saga is often you get to places where you have no idea what to do. And in the days when I was in high school and such like that, you didn't really have the internet to look it up. So, many times I'd play this game and I'd get to a certain point and it'd just be a dead end. They included a map, but the map was worthless. It didn't tell you anything. It just glue a dot where you're at, but that really didn't tell you anything. The crystal ball that you get on the overland map, though, on the other hand, that was pretty helpful. So it kind of had a unique facet where you could see the monsters and you could dodge them a little bit, and then you could see towns or dungeons. And another example is, for every time I've played this game, I still don't know what this tower's purpose is. It connects to another tower, but it just all seems so pointless. It's like a pointless dungeon. I don't know if I'm missing something, but, it's just another mystery. The one thing I can say is, there's some flaws in this game for sure. One nice thing is when you're collecting the runes glow. So as the story does change each time you play it, but you can kind of find them runes. They might move around on you from game to game. The kind of some of the flaws I kind of was mentioning before is it's super 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 hard. That's definitely a flaw. The you don't know where you're going a lot of times. That's definitely a flaw. I don't feel like the characters are super well balanced either. Some feel better than others. One of the things that I really enjoy though is, it's got some of the basic things that I love about RPGs, like a villain that keeps coming back. You got Pyson, you fight Pyson, and he's kind of like a bounty hunter, and you fight Red Pyson and Metal Pyson. So it's one of them, that you see in many RPGs where you have kind of a sub villain that won't stay down and keeps coming back for another round. And I do appreciate the kind of like the strategic battle. This game is pretty hard, and as you see, you can be on top of a fight, and if they get a crit, man, that can really affect everything. So there is a fair amount of strategicness. A lot of times you're going to do grinding, which never bothers me, but if you're a person that doesn't want to just have to do a ton of grinding, this game's going to be a big turnoff. All the bosses are very iconic to me. I just love their art. They had very different art style and kind of huge, and the animation, even though it's very simple animation, it just was fun. And it's just something I always remembered. In this era, it wasn't real common to see that. Although, if you go just a little further in the RPG history, there was much greater graphics than this. But for its time, it was pretty good, I thought. I've played through 7th Saga, I think 3 times. I know I've beat it with Camille in this run. I know I've beaten it with Asuna and Lejace, the demon. And I think I've gotten almost to the end with Lux. So I've played a few times. It's a game I enjoy. Would I recommend it to you? Well, if you're a hardcore RPG player, and if you're seeing this video, you probably are, and you haven't played it, I would play it. It is a fun game. It's aged for sure. It's frustrating. It is very frustrating. You expect to have to go out on the internet and look some stuff up. You'll hit a point where you're just like, man, it's kind of an open world at this point, and I know I'm supposed to collect runes, or I even know which town the rune's in, but I have no idea what to do. Even when I played through, I had to look up 2 or 3 things, even though I kind of knew from playing it a few times through in the past what the gist of it is. And then the other thing is it's just kind of the music's okay. There's nothing about the story's okay. I guess probably my favorite parts are the characterization and some of the plot. But other than that, it's kind of generic, but it is a good game. It's a tough game. It's a good one. I recommend it. Well, thanks for tuning in again. Subscribe or comment. Actually, comment what your favorite character is and if you've played it. Other than that, take care, and I'll be posting some more videos. So hopefully you enjoy them, and I'll just keep doing it just because, well, why not? Thanks again.